All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about plates and throwing plates. So on one hand, plates can be really simple to throw, but the big challenge of them is going to be later when they're dry and we get into the trimming process. So, similar to maybe a bowl or a cup that's going to be trimmed, plates we're going to make much thicker than they need to be. But with that, it's also really important that we focus on compression and having them well centered so that they don't want to crack, and strong rims so they don't want to crack, because flat objects in ceramics are inherently always going to want to crack. And so we want to make sure we don't get what are referred to S-cracks, and it's just where your plate will have an S-shaped crack across the bottom. So that's a bad thing. So this first one will be just kind of more of a traditional straight up center and throw of the plate. And you'll see that the plates, they kind of make themselves. It's really kind of convenient. So again, I got about 5 pounds of clay here. I'm gonna go ahead and just lightly moisten my wheel head to get all the kind of dust and crud off. And then I'm just going to put my ball right in the center, kind of pack it down really well to make sure it doesn't want to go anywhere. Put some water down. And again, kind of like before, or I'm going to center this basically like anything, with my right fist on top and my left palm kind of controlling the side of it. So far, if you've only worked on the scale of bowls or cups, ratcheting it up to 5 pounds of clay is going to be more difficult. But, starting out with a centered plate, though, is really important. And basically, I'm just going to make a big, thick disc. Let me find my ruler real. Center to get that clay to expand horizontally. So now I'm about 9 inches. Let's see if we can get another inch out of this. All right, so that's just over 10 inches. So basically right now, this is a plate. It's not a great plate. It's got some problems with it. For one, it's higher here in the center. It's probably kind of hard to see, but my center point is the highest point right now, aside from maybe this edge. And this edge, what's going to be the rim, that's really thick. That's pretty beefy. And so what I've got to do is figure out how to make the rim better, and then how to make the contour of the inside better. Thinking about it like a bowl. We don't want a whole lot of bumpy transitions on the inside of here. We just want kind of a smooth, clean surface. And so I need to pull up my rim a little bit and focus on the center of this. So first I'm going to focus on the center. And I like to do this a couple different ways. I have this blue rib that's really firm, which is really nice, or a wooden rib, or even for bigger plates, I've made myself a big wooden rib. And essentially we want like a really firm rib, because the clay is going to push back a lot. It's one of those where a rubber, like a plastic or rubber, like red rib is going to be really difficult. Metal ribs aren't really great either for it because they're flexible. I'm just going to start by just gently pressing in the center, or close to the center. Again, I don't want to push directly in the center, but I'm just off the center. And then, rather than kind of sliding back and forth with my rib, I'm going to pick it up and drop it at every place I want to put pressure down. If I start sliding it around, that's going to give me those S-cracks. Okay, so that's got a much nicer kind of flatness to, or flatness with just a bit of curve. And again, The compression of that's really important so it doesn't crack. And so now I'm going to go ahead and pull up this rim because this rim right now is just too thick. And I'm going to end up trimming a foot ring in the back of this, but I want to make sure that my trim has been thrown rather than my rim has been thrown rather than trimmed to get a better surface. So to do that, it's not that different from how we pull anything, except I just don't have to do as much. So I'm going to use my left hand on the inside like that, just kind of basically coddling the clay. And then with my right hand, and again I'm going to do this with a sponge, but you don't have to do it with a sponge. I'm basically just going to push in to my left hand, and that clay is just naturally going to go up and naturally start forming a better rim. You can see my rim is a much better thickness now. From the side here, we can see it's much taller than it needs to be. So it must be like a pie plate. We don't want that. So I'm just going to compress this really quick. And then what I'm going to end up doing is similar to a bowl. I'm going to lay down the rim real quick. But before I do that, I'm going to come back with my wooden knife tool and just give myself that guidelet for later when I cut this off. Because here in a minute, it's going to be harder with the rim. So I'm going to use my rib and just very gently lay the rim down. Again, my left hand's there just to kind of support it just in case. And then I'm going to take my chamois and just compress that really well. And then this plate's basically done right now until it's time to trim this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. So with plates, it's really important that you hold the wire really tight. Otherwise, the wire is going to want to curve up, and you're going to cut into a lot of your clay in the bottom. And it's really important that you retain as much clay as you can down at the bottom, and we'll go over that in trimming. So I'm just going to pick this up here. Again, my hands are nice and dry. I've ribbed off almost all the moisture of this clay. And I'm just going to pick that back end up over at 12 o'clock and then lift it, grab it with my hand, and walk over to a board. The clay just kind of has the memory to lay back down. If you're throwing with not enough clay and it gets really thin, you're going to end up having a problem with your plate warping really bad. So like I said, 5 pounds for about 10 to 12 inches. Use a little bit more if you're worried about it. It's not going to hurt. We can trim down the excess weight later.